Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News, an Indian perspective on All India Radio. This is Navneet Singh and with me is Anita Anand, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring to you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Nationwide mock drill conducted in all hospitals on Tuesday to take stock of COVID-19 emergency preparedness in India. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanks India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi for humanitarian aid, wishes successful G20 presidency. Saudi Arabia, United States, United Kingdom and Australia issue travel advisories for Pakistan. Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen says mandatory military service to be extended from 4 months to 1 year. US President declares emergency in New York due to severe winter storm. Government of India recognizes e-sports as part of multi-sports events. And in cricket, Australia lead by 197 runs in the first innings on the day 2 of second test against South Africa at Melbourne. David Warner scores a majestic double century. A nationwide mock drill was conducted in all hospitals on Tuesday to take stock of the COVID-19 emergency preparedness in the country. It comes amid rising COVID-19 cases in some countries. During the drill, resources available in hospitals to fight COVID were assessed, including the infrastructure readiness, with particular focus on oxygen plants, ventilators, logistics and human resources. The decision to carry out the drill came days after Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a review meeting on the COVID situation in the country. Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia visited Safdarjung Hospital in New Delhi to review the mock drill there. Talking to media, the minister assured that the Government of India is fully prepared to deal with any eventuality if COVID cases increase in the country. China is set to cancel quarantine requirements for inbound international arrivals starting from January 8th. National Health Mission said management of COVID-19 will also be downgraded from Class A to Class B, which means there will be no sealed control of COVID-19 cases and designation of high-risk areas. More from our Beijing correspondent.
China is all set to reopen its borders and abandon quarantine for inbound travelers after it downgrades its management of COVID-19 on coming January 8. This decision is seen as the country's last step in shedding 3 years of zero COVID and pivoting to living with the virus. COVID-19 has been managed as a top category A infectious disease since 2020, putting it on par with bubonic plague and cholera, which mandated toughest restrictions such as quarantine and isolation of the infected and the close contacts and citywide lockdowns to contain those diseases. Category B management means COVID-19 only requires necessary treatment and measures to curb the spread. There are signs that China has been preparing for the pivot with PCR testing no longer mandatory and Vice Premier Sun Chunlan, who has been in charge of COVID-19 response, urging lower level authorities to focus on treatment instead of infections. Meanwhile, cases are surging at unimaginable speed since China largely dismantled its zero-tolerance policy in recent weeks, including nationwide shortages of test kits and medication. Hospitals are swarmed with COVID cases and ICUs are full with severe cases. Crematoriums are burdened with rising death toll in many cities. Meanwhile, China has also stopped sharing the hospitalization data with WHO for last 2 weeks. Anshuman Mishra for World News, All India Radio, Beijing.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said on Tuesday that his government will tighten restrictions on travelers entering Japan from China in response to the rapid increase in cases. The decision comes following China's decision to loosen its harsh zero-COVID policy. He also added they will do everything possible not to stop the smooth international travel. Japan will require all travelers from China to be tested upon arrival from Friday. If a person tests positive, a 7-day quarantine will be needed at a designated facility. The government will also impose mandatory testing on travelers who have been in China in the last 7 days. Currently, if a traveller to Japan has proof of having received 3 doses of coronavirus vaccines or a negative test within 72 hours before departure, no mandatory testing upon entry is needed. All positive test results will be subjected to genome analysis to determine if any new variants have been detected. The Japan government will not allow airlines to increase the number of flights to and from China. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has conveyed India's support for any peace efforts in the ongoing conflict in Ukraine in a telephonic conversation with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday. The Prime Minister assured India's commitment to continue providing humanitarian assistance for the affected civilian population. Reiterating an immediate cessation of hostilities, Mr. Modi said that both sides should revert to dialogue and diplomacy to find a lasting solution to their differences. The two leaders also discussed opportunities for strengthening bilateral cooperation. Mr. Modi requested Ukraine authorities to facilitate arrangements for continuing education of Indian students who had to return from Ukraine earlier this year. Mr. Zelensky also conveyed his best wishes for India's G20 presidency.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that Moscow's proposals for demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine are well known to Kyiv, and it is up to the Ukrainian authorities to fulfill them. He warned that otherwise the Russian army will decide the issue. Russian state news agency reported, quoting Lavrov, that it was for Ukraine's good to eliminate threats to Russia's security emanating from Ukraine. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said the situation in front lines of Bakhmut and Kreminna and other areas in the eastern Donbas region is difficult and painful. In his last night's address, he thanked employees who worked Christmas Eve and Christmas Day to restore energy to different parts of the country. He said that while there are still some outages, the situation is improving. Donetsk Regional Governor Pavlo Kirilenko said that more than 60% of the infrastructure in the city of Bakhmut, which has been the site of intense fighting, is partially or fully destroyed.
India's Minister for Power, R.K. Singh, says from a power deficit nation, India has now become a power surplus one. In an exclusive interview with News Services Division of All India Radio, Mr. Singh talked about the recent transformation of the power sector.
We've transformed our country from a power deficit country to a power surplus country. We added 173,000 megawatts of capacity from 2015 onwards till date. Today we export power to Bangladesh, Nepal, Myanmar. Our total installed capacity today is 4,08,000 megawatts.
The Centre for Economics and Business Research, CEBR, a British consultancy, has said India will become third largest economy by 2035 from the current fifth spot. In its annual World Economic League table, the Centre for Economics and Business Research said that over the next 5 years, India's annual rate of GDP growth is expected to average 6.4%, after which growth is expected to average 6.5% in the subsequent 9 years. The CEBR also adds that by 2037, world gross domestic product will be doubled as developing economies will catch up with the richer ones. The shifting balance of power will see the East Asia and Pacific region account for over a third of global output by 2037, while Europe's share shrinks to less than a fifth. It said, on the other hand, the global economy will face recession in 2023, mainly due to rise in the interest rates by the central banks to arrest higher inflation. In its annual World Economic League table, it said global economy surpassed $100 trillion for the first time in 2022, but will stall in 2023 as policymakers continue their fight against soaring prices. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a news commentary, India's indigenous defense sector on an upward trajectory.
The Government of India has taken several policy initiatives in the past few years and brought in reforms to encourage indigenous design, development and manufacture of defense equipment, thereby promoting Atmanirbharta or self-reliance in defense manufacturing and technology in the country. These initiatives include according priority to procurement of capital items of Buy Indian category from domestic sources under Defence Acquisition Procedure DAP 2020. Notification of 4 positive indigenization lists of total 411 items of services and 3 positive indigenization lists of total 3,738 items of defence public sector undertakings, for which there would be an embargo on the import beyond the timelines indicated against them. Simplification of industrial licensing process with longer validity period, liberalization of foreign direct investment policy, allowing 74% FDI under automatic route. According to the Indian Defence Ministry, our defence industry is now capable of manufacturing wide variety of high-end requirements. For example, tanks, armoured vehicles, fighter aircrafts, helicopters, warships, submarines, missiles, electronic equipment, special alloys, special purpose steels, and variety of ammunition. Rapid progress has been made towards achieving complete Atmanirbharta in the manufacturing of defence equipment required by our armed forces within the country. As a result of these initiatives, many state-of-the-art products, including 155mm artillery gun system Dhanush, light combat aircraft Tejas, surface-to-air missile system Akash, main battle tank Arjun, T-90 tank, T-72 tank, armoured personnel carrier BMP-2-2K, Su-30 Mach 1, Cheetah helicopter, advanced light helicopter, Dornier Do 228, high mobility trucks, INS Kalvari, INS Khanderi, INS Chennai, anti-submarine warfare corvette, Arjun armoured repair and recovery vehicle, bridge laying tank, bi-modular charge system for 155mm ammunition, medium bulletproof vehicle, weapon locating radar, integrated air command and control system, software-defined radios, Lakshya parachute for pilotless target aircraft, opto-electronic sights for battle tanks, water jet fast attack craft, inshore patrol vessel, offshore patrol vessel, fast interceptor boat, landing craft utility, 25 T tugs, etc. have been produced in the country during the last few years. For the first time, a made-in-India advanced towed artillery gun, Howitzer gun, developed by the domestic industry was part of the 21-gun salute during the Independence Day celebration at Red Fort in Delhi. An innovation ecosystem for defence, titled Innovations for Defence Excellence, IDEX, was launched in April 2018 to foster innovation and technology development in defence and aerospace by engaging industries including MSMEs, startups, individual innovators, R&D institutes and academia. IDEX provides them grants or funding and other support to carry out innovations or R&D which has potential for future adoption for Indian defence and aerospace needs. Under IDEX, 233 problems have been opened, 310 startups have been engaged, 140 contracts have been signed. IDEX Prime framework under IDEX has been launched in 2022 to support startups with grant in aid up to 10 crore rupees to enable the development of high-end solutions. Till October 2022, a total of 595 industrial licenses have been issued to 366 companies operating in defence sector. The government has also established 2 defence industrial corridors, one each in Uttar Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, to attract investments in aerospace and defence sector and established a comprehensive defence manufacturing ecosystem in the country. Moreover, the respective state governments have also published their aerospace and defence policies to attract private players as well as foreign companies, including original equipment manufacturers in these 2 corridors. The 2 state governments have already signed MOUs or agreements with various industries for investment worth total value of about 24,000 crore rupees. Investments worth 2,242 crore rupees and 3,847 crore rupees have been made in Uttar Pradesh Defence Industrial Corridor and Tamil Nadu Defence Industrial Corridor respectively. The government in the last 3 years, from 2019-20 to 2021-22 and the current year, 2022-23 up to September 2022, has accorded acceptance of necessity to 163 proposals worth over 2,46,989 crore rupees approximately under various categories of capital procurement which promotes domestic manufacturing as per DAP 2020. The share of domestic procurement in the total procurement has been on an uptrend. In 2018-19, the domestic procurement stood at 54% of the total procurement. This figure jumped up to 68% this year. 25% of the defence budget has been earmarked for procurement from private industry. With focus of government on indigenization and procurement of defence products from the domestic resources, the expenditure on defence procurement from foreign sources has reduced to 36% in 2021-22.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen has said that mandatory military service will be extended from 4 months to 1 year. Speaking at a press conference in Taipei on Tuesday, President Tsai announced new plans to bolster Taiwan's defense in the event of an attack from Beijing. She said peace will not drop by from the sky when Taiwan is on the front line of authoritarian expansion. The decision to extend mandatory military service comes amid growing tensions with China, which claims the self-ruled island as its territory. President Tsai chaired a national security meeting Tuesday morning to discuss reinforcing the island's civil defense. Taiwan's security team, including high-level officials from the Defense Ministry and the National Security Council, has been reviewing military system since 2020 amid increasing threats from China. Taipei, which rejects Beijing's sovereignty claims, yesterday reported the largest ever Chinese Air Force incursion into the island's air defense identification zone, with 43 Chinese planes crossing an unofficial buffer between the two sides. Saudi Arabia's embassy in Pakistan called on its citizens to exercise caution after the authorities raised the security alert in Islamabad to its highest level. It has warned all citizens residing and visiting Pakistan to take caution and not to go out except for necessity. Saudi Arabia's statements comes after several countries, including United States, United Kingdom and Australia, have issued travel advisories for Pakistan. The advisories have been issued after Pakistan was rocked by several blasts on Sunday. Australia issued a travel advisory for its citizens in Pakistan, urging them to increase caution and limit travel within Islamabad city. Earlier, the US government warned its citizens of information that unknown individuals are possibly planning an attack at the Marriott Hotel in Islamabad during the holidays. The UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office also issued a travel advisory to British nationals from visiting Pakistan. On Sunday, at least 7 blasts took place in Pakistan's Balochistan, where 5 army personnel were killed and 19 others were injured.
External Affairs Minister of India Dr. S. Jaishankar spoke to Kuwaiti Foreign Minister Sheikh Salim Abdullah Al Jaber Al Sabah and congratulated him on his appointment. In a tweet, Dr. Jaishankar said he is looking forward to working together for further development of the relationship. Reports are emerging that the tensions between Serbia and Kosovo in the Balkans are simmering. Serbian President has now put his armed forces on highest level of alert and deployed armaments along the border with Kosovo. This comes days after Serbian army chief visited the border amid blockades and firing incidents near NATO patrolling troops in the past weeks. The Serbian army says it is at its highest level of combat readiness after weeks of escalating tensions between Serbia and Kosovo. There is no comment from the Kosovo side so far. The European Union has been attempting to mediate. Kosovo, which has an overwhelmingly ethnic Albanian majority, broke away from Serbia after a war in 1998-99. NATO, which has peacekeeping troops in Kosovo, has called on all parties to avoid provocations.
US President Joe Biden has declared an emergency in the state of New York due to a severe winter storm. According to a White House statement, the president has declared that an emergency exists in the state of New York and ordered federal assistance to supplement state and local response efforts due to the emergency conditions resulting from a severe winter storm. It said the action authorizes the Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, to coordinate all disaster relief efforts which have the purpose of alleviating the hardship and suffering caused by the emergency on the local population and to provide appropriate assistance for required emergency measures. Earlier reports said at least 12 states, namely Colorado, Illinois, Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan, Missouri, Nebraska, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Wisconsin reported a total of 50 deaths. The city of Buffalo in northeastern New York State had the most casualties, with more than a meter of snow falling over the weekend. The storm stretching from Canada to Mexican border has killed 56 people. In New York, particularly in Buffalo, authorities said bodies were discovered inside vehicles and from under snowbanks as emergency officials went from car to car to search for more survivors. Hundreds of flights have been cancelled amid howling winds and sub-zero temperatures. Roadways remain littered with cars, buses, ambulances, tow trucks and even plows buried beneath towering drifts, complicating efforts to clear snow-blanketed streets and reach stranded residents in need of medical care. India Meteorological Department IMD has predicted that fresh cold wave conditions would prevail again from the 31st of December. Talking to AIR News, senior scientist in the IMD, R.K. Jenamani, attributed the increase in cold wave conditions to western disturbances. He said from 31st the region will again experience a fresh spell of cold wave.
The fog condition will improve at the same time. Today the day temperature over Delhi has improved. Earlier it was 14 degree, 15 degree, but this has increased 3 to 4 degree almost. So temperature has been 15 to 18 degree. So there will be further improvement during next 3 days till 29 because of the WD. Then a fresh spell of cold wave will start from 31st after the WD moved away by 30th morning.
In the Philippines, death toll from Christmas rains and floods has risen to 13. Flash floods after 2 days of heavy rains in the country also forced roughly 45,000 people into evacuation centers. Authorities said that the search is on for the missing 23 people. Most of the deaths were caused by drowning from flash floods. Images on social media show Coast Guard, police and fire personnel wading through waist-deep floods and carrying residents along landslide-hit areas. Some roads were flooded by overflowing rivers nearby. Rescue operations continued and damage to agriculture and livestock are being assessed. There was no tropical storm in the mostly Catholic nation's most important holiday, but a weather phenomenon where warm and cold winds meet caused rain clouds to form in southern Philippines. Israeli Prime Minister-designate Benjamin Netanyahu has called a vote in parliament on his new government for Thursday, just days before his mandate to do so expires. Mr. Netanyahu's bloc of right-wing and religious parties won a clear victory in parliamentary elections last month, but the veteran leader has had a harder time than expected in finalizing coalition deals. Ahead of the vote in Parliament and a formal swearing-in of the new government, Mr. Netanyahu will have to officially present the members of his cabinet.
Sri Lanka plans to increase power tariffs by up to 65% in January 2023 through cabinet approval to offset costs. Sri Lanka's Power Minister Kanchan Wijesekara has said that his ministry would seek cabinet's approval next week for the price hike. The minister added that all religious places would be supplied with a free-of-charge solar power unit generating 5 kilowatts of electricity. These solar power units will be provided within a period of 3 months under an Indian credit facility. Mr. Wijesekara added that 3 shipments of coal for the Norocholai coal power plant are expected to arrive by mid-January. The Sensex and the NSE Nifty on Tuesday posted gains of more than 0.5%. Index of top 30 companies at Bombay Stock Exchange, Sensex, ended above the 60,900 level. The Nifty index of top 50 companies at National Stock Exchange closed above the 18,100 mark. Both indices added amid positive cues from global share markets. A report from the business desk.
The Sensex climbed 361 points or 0.60% to settle at 60,927. The Nifty also rose 118 points or 0.65% to finish at 18,132. Among global stock markets, Asian shares ended with gains. China's Shanghai Composite Index climbed 1% and South Korea's Kospi gained 0.7%. Singapore's Straits Times Index rose 0.3% and Japan's Nikkei 225 added 0.2%. In European markets, Germany's DAX gained 0.8% and France's CAC was trading 1% up. Due to the extended holidays of Christmas and New Year, many share markets including Hong Kong's Hang Seng and London's FTSE 100 remained closed. US markets were also closed amid festive celebrations. Crude oil hit a 3-week high as China's latest easing of COVID-19 restrictions spurred hopes of a fuel demand recovery. The crude prices also got support from cuts in US energy production caused by winter storms. In intraday trade, Brent crude was trading at $84.50 per barrel. Back home at the Multi-Commodity Exchange, gold futures for February was trading at 54,880 rupees per 10 grams. Silver futures for March delivery was trading at 70,080 rupees per kilogram. S. Rangabashyam for World News.
The Government of India has officially recognized e-sports in the country. According to a Gazette notification, e-sports will now be a part of the multi-sports event category in India under the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. E-sports, short for electronic sports, is a form of competition using video games. Our correspondent reports that the decision is likely to have significant effects on India's e-sports sector and boost the growth of country's e-sports industry.
David Warner retired hurt after scoring a majestic 200 as Australia dominated day 2 of the second cricket test against South Africa at Melbourne. Australia were 386 for 3 at stumps on Tuesday in reply to the visitors' first innings of 189, with a lead of 197 runs and the Siddies at its mercy after the 6-wicket win in the Brisbane opener. Warner and Steve Smith put on a 239-run stand for the third wicket. Short of runs and without a century, nearly 3 years, Warner slogged his way to his third double hundred from 254 balls before retiring hurt in his 100th test match. On the way to his 25th hundred, the 36-year-old opener became the 8th Australian to reach 8,000 test runs while ending the debate about his place in the side. Australia resumed at the overnight score of 45 for 1 in the morning. And now let's take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Global Times writes, China announces resumption of outbound tourism in an orderly manner. COVID-19 tests for inbound travelers scrapped. South China Morning Post reports Chinese turn to black market for generic Indian COVID-19 drugs as surge sweeps nation. The Straits Times writes Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim goes slow on reform as he strengthens position. The Straits Times also writes Singapore goes from 0 to 5 vaccine plants as pharma firms seek flexibility. Guardian writes reliance on high-tech solutions to climate crisis perpetuates racism, says UN official, and Business Recorder reports Bangladesh tries to stop Rohingyas risking their lives at sea.
A quick look at the headlines once again. Nationwide mock drill conducted in all hospitals on Tuesday to take stock of COVID-19 emergency preparedness in India. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanks India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi for humanitarian aid. Wishes successful G20 presidency. Saudi Arabia, United States, United Kingdom and Australia issue travel advisories for Pakistan. Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen says mandatory military service to be extended from 4 months to 1 year. US President declares emergency in New York due to severe winter storm. Government of India recognizes e-sports as part of multi-sports event. And in cricket, Australia lead by 197 runs in the first innings on day 2 of the second test against South Africa at Melbourne. David Warner scores a majestic double century. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artiste from Laos. And with that, we end this bulletin. We will be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.